right, welcome to a Saturday afternoon. Florida State beats Wake Forest 41-16 at Snuggy Hill in Winston-Salem. This is the Osceola Seminole Sidelines with our friends. First Impression Show. We do this every Saturday post-game. Today we welcome in Osceola football analyst Mark Salva, who is on site at Winston-Salem. Made it to his hotel room for good Wi-Fi so he can give us his thoughts. Jerry Kutz from the back patio there in Tallahassee. Thanks for joining in, our publisher, Jerry Kutz. I'm Bob Ferrante, the editor of the Osceola. Guys, we have a lot to unpack today. First off, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for reading the Osceola. You can check out the Osceola.com full coverage of Florida State Wake Forest, as well as recruiting. Basketball starting up soon. So if you're not a subscriber, jump in now. Of course, jump on to our YouTube channel, The Osceola. It's 2 words on YouTube. Like and subscribe our videos for commentary from guys like these, Mark Salva, Jerry Kutz, and of course, Patrick Burnham at Winston-Salem. He will give us his thoughts after some of these press conferences. First off, guys, it's been a little while since Florida State beat Wake Forest. Not since, I think, 2017 in Winston-Salem, if you're counting road games. This is Mike Norvell's first win over Dave Clawson and Wake Forest. A good afternoon. Mark, you were there. You got a little bit of sun, enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Your early impressions.
Well, it was a great atmosphere. I'd say we're at least 50-50 crowd, and Seminoles showed up in force, and that was good to see. Seminoles roll out in their stormtrooper all whites, and it was a good game. We did what we needed to do. It was real evident that the defense had a beat on the offense, and looking to see if Griffith was going to play or Ferrucci was going to play was the first thing, and it came out that it was Griffiths, and so but still, I didn't really think that was a huge deal. Either one was good. I didn't think it was going to be very effective, and it turned out to be true the first half. And we go down the first 5 or 6 plays were passes. That to me, kind of raised my eyebrow. I said, okay, we're really going to try to get after these guys a little bit. Score the first drive, and it looks like things are going well. They crack a big run, and they get a pass and score on the jet sweep. And so but we pulled away in that second quarter. We seemed to be able to impose our will on them, and it was great to see. It was like, okay, all's right with the world. We're playing to our full potential. Defense is shutting them out. Keon Coleman's making plays. Jordan Travis is making plays. And you go into halftime and you're like, man, let's get this done, get the young guys in, and then the third quarter happens, and it was like a big fat tub of toxic waste. I mean, I don't know what that was about. The penalties, the just the poor execution. Just so frustrated how that third quarter looked, and then we pull some plays out in the fourth quarter and pull away, but man, I guess every team has their flaws. Playing great. Michigan's the only team that's just blowing people out, week after week, and they're not playing anybody real great. So I guess you take it. I'm over here talking about 41-17, right? So 16. 16. So I'm like, what am I complaining about? It's just so frustrating when you see how good we play in that stretch. And then, can we just put the boot on their neck and finish it out and get out of there, right? But we had to suffer through that third quarter. That's the frustrating part of it.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you. You were there.
Yeah.
And the TV camera flashed the crowd at the start of the third quarter after halftime, and it was pretty much empty.
It was.
I mean, it looked like
the whole student section left and didn't come back.
Right.
And I turned to somebody. I'm like, "Did they have to go study? I mean, what's the deal there?" And it was funny because I sitting next to some Seminole fans, and they were here last night, and they were asking around, "Hey, where did the students go on Friday night for a game?" And she was serious as a heart attack, and turned around and the person she asked said, "Well, they don't really go out on Friday nights around here." I'm like, "Okay, well, it's just a different deal, And I've always heard you had to bring your own energy, and that is the truth. I mean, it was, the band. The band was probably, 100 people in their band, maybe, right? And so, yeah, it's just a totally different deal. And maybe
so Mark, that's That's where I was going with this. You know, you played the game, you coached teams, and they're all different. But you're up 34-7 at halftime, and you come out, and it's freaking dead.
No question. And I guess that had something to do with it. But I would like to think, and I was thinking back, and as I was sitting there in the stands, I'm thinking this is the kind of game that Wayne McDuffie and Mickey Andrews and those guys would be all in our stuff. And just, you know, the good teams, and I remember Wayne saying this, you know, the good teams, that, you know, back in our day, the Nebraskas and the Oklahomas and all that, when they play teams and they're in this situation, they finish the game, and it'd just be relentless on us to finish the game. You know, and I'm not saying our guys don't do that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a different mindset. I just, you know, you just want to go down there and just come on now. You know,
I know.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, and it felt like, you know, you play golf, and it was like they had a case of the yips. It was just one thing after another that was, you know, symbolic of a lack of focus.
Yeah, and I couldn't see the penalties clear enough to know if they were, you know, bad calls or not. I got the one where they slung the guy and they called that one. I don't know, the horse collar. I couldn't really see from where I was.
I thought it looked like it was to me. How about you, Bob? It looked like a horse collar to me.
Those were horse collar calls that we wish Dalvin Cook would have gotten back in the day. So let's give him credit. That one probably should have been one too.
Okay, well, you know, so but and I'm sitting there thinking, do they not make mistakes? Do they not hold? Do they? I mean, you know, I don't want to sound like that guy and that fan that just always complains about the officiating, but that played a part.
It played a part.
They went because, you know,
whether they were good calls or bad calls,
right?
They were, right.
100%. I mean, that one drive when we were on their side of the 50 and we get 2 personal fouls right off the bat, and it's, you know, 2nd and 32 or whatever it was. You know, I mean, it's just so frustrating. And I know.
And Poitier made a catch for a touchdown that was called back on holding on Roddick, which it looked like a hold to me, but still, it just busts whatever momentum. If Poitier, if that's not a holding call there, if they don't call it, man, you've got a big spark.
100%. And I thought we were out of it at that point, and then I saw the flag and just, golly. So, I mean, look, we won big, and, you know, Dave Clawson said that this was the best defense he's had since he's been there. You know, and we scored 41 and probably should have scored a bunch more. So, you know, you got to take that into consideration too. They're on scholarship too. Yeah. But it just seemed like, but when you see that stretch that we had in the second quarter, you know, end of the first and the beginning of the second quarter, and you see how dominant we can be, it's just, you know, let's keep that level of play, consistency of performance. That's all you want to see. And you want to see us play to our full potential, you know, for 60 minutes, you know, we just can't seem to quite get there.
Yeah. I almost wonder at halftime, if you'd have come out with Rodemaker and some of the younger guys at halftime, if you might not have gotten the intense focus you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I mean, you know, I guess Tate is still not almost perfect. His QB rating's got to be through the roof, right?
6 out of 7.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Jared, to your point, you know, but at that point, I'm thinking, let's get our first guys in there. Let's keep this momentum in this feeling of execution that we had with that group, going for 1 or 2 more, you know, drive scores and get them out. Yeah. You know, but that was not to be.
No.
Yeah, and Mark, to your point, Wake Forest had given up just 30 points. That was the max they've given up this year twice. Florida State gets 41, and we're kind of lamenting a few more missed opportunities here. So I think that kind of shows you a really good, I won't say really good, I think an effort to be proud of for the offense, especially on a day where you're down 3 receivers.
100%. I looked at the scoreboard. We had, at halftime, we had 360-something yards. I'm thinking, wow, we could have a 700-yard game. You know, I mean, I probably wouldn't get to that, but, you know, how impressive was that? I mean, like I said, it just pulls your hair out when you see how good we can be.
What Bob? What was what did we finish with?
382 passing. So again, that's a season high for Jordan Travis in terms of passing yardage.
Yeah, total.
He had 3 touchdown passes and 1 rushing touchdown. So it doesn't match what he had against Oklahoma from a true career yardage total. But maybe was this a factor? I'll ask you guys this question. Not having Johnny Wilson, we've seen Destin Hill in the mix. We've seen Hakeem Williams more and more in the mix. When you change up some of the pieces out there as your, let's call them primary receivers, we saw more of Kentron out there, more of Ja'Kai out there, leaned on the tight ends, leaned on Jaheim Bell and Kyle Morlock. Those have been guys who've been out there all year. But when the pieces change, is the chemistry, the rhythm of the passing game just a little bit different? Does that contribute to the timing for Jordan Travis and just the crispness of a route, how it's run, just that communication maybe?
Yeah, I think inevitably it does. I would think though that you had a full week of practice with this group, and this group has been in there. I mean, we roll guys in and out all the time, but not having Johnny Wilson's catch radius out there, of course, is going to be a factor. I mean, he's an outstanding player. You're going to miss him. Destin and Hakeem, I can't really speak to. I mean, they've been in the game. They've been semi-factors. But, Ja'Kai Douglas had a really nice – I mean, he almost broke that one post that he hit, right? Jordan hit him on. That was nice. And it's good to see him, get out there and kind of start to realize some of the potential we've always thought he had. But to your point, Bob, of course you're going to miss Johnny. The other guys – it's hard to say, but again, you went through the whole week knowing those guys probably weren't going to play. So you would think that the timing and that the execution would still be good enough.
Yeah.
One small correction there. Jordan Travis, 359 passing with the Tate throw of 23 yards. That's the combined 382 for Florida State. So just to clarify there as we're kind of breaking down some numbers. Go ahead,
what was our total offense for the game? FSU's total offense?
508, which is very pretty.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
It is. I can't believe I'm over here complaining about.
Hey, so what I wrote at the end of our game watch there was, I picked the game to be 41-16. Right. And I picked it 41-14. It came out 41-16. I was off by 2 points. And yet I'm disappointed.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's just
Mark, what I wrote is I feel like a little kid who comes out on Christmas morning and sees a brand new bicycle under the Christmas tree and feels disappointed because it's not a pony.
Right.
How immature is this thinking? I mean, like I'm a little kid.
I think for me, it's because I know what's coming down the line, right? I know what's coming down. I know we're getting ready to see a Miami defense that can run and has guys that can cover. I know we're going to see a Florida defense that will have athletes and that, so you see that and that like to run the ball. So what's coming down the line. And so when you see the warts, and I can't help in the back of my mind project, okay, is this just because it's Wake Forest and we kind of want to start close a little bit, or is this actually something that I need to worry about down the line? I think that's where this comes from.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, I was in the press box when you were wearing a helmet, right? And I can remember you guys sometimes not looking particularly good.
Right.
And if you tried to project, oh my God, they've got Miami coming, they've got Florida coming. Right. If we play like they did today, we're going to get waxed. But that isn't what's going to happen when Miami steps out on the field.
Well, again, you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids, 23-year-old kids, and it's what you get in situations, and especially in an environment that we are in today.
Yeah.
So again, the frustrating thing is we can look unstoppable in moments on both sides of the ball.
Yep.
Right. I mean, receivers are covered, nowhere to go with the ball, pass rush, stifling the run, taking away that slow read. I mean, you
took it away.
You took it away. You see that, and and then just you would like to think that just a little bit of loss of focus doesn't turn into 10 points, right? And I think that's the thing, that for us to get to the place we hope to get to, we have to play our best at all times. And there, let's face it, I mean, there have been moments in this program's history where we could bring our B game or C game and still win ball games.
Not this team.
Not this team. No. And so I guess that's kind of what we're thinking, right? That's where we're at. But you know what? When this team does bring its A game, I think we could beat anybody in the country. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
We've got skill. We've got a quarterback that's dynamic. We've got a defense that can, that has some depth to it. They're playing better in the secondary now. So, yeah, when we play our game, we can beat anybody. The question is, how often can we do it? Is it something that we can count on with this team in the moments that count? And I'm still not sure about that.
So when you look at the first half, the thing that struck me was defensively in the first half now. There was a 51-yard run,
a
9-yard run on the first play of the game.
Yep.
And they finished the half with 77 yards. In the first half, they completed one pass for 19 yards, and they had 19 yards negative on sacks.
Right. Yeah.
So anytime they tried to pass the ball in the first half, it netted in 0. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah. I was high in the stands, and I was watching the secondary a lot today because I oftentimes don't get an opportunity to do that watching TV. And those guys were covered up, man. They covered them great. I mean, there was nowhere to go with the ball. And, again, at halftime, I look at the scoreboard. They had the yardages up there, and they had under 100 yards of total offense. I think it was like 76 or something, total offense. Mm-hmm. So I was like, man, this is going really good right now,
Yeah, I thought the other thing I thought was I didn't think Jordan was as accurate as he typically has been.
Right.
And his misses, I think, what did he have? 6 incomplete passes, something like that, Bob? Or he's 14 for 20.
22 of 35 on the day. And I'm trying to find a halftime box to give you a breakdown.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. But he was 22 of 35, 65%. That's a good day. His yardage was great. But I thought in the first drive, he was a little bit inaccurate first couple of drives. So, some of them were completions where it was a slant and he threw it behind Coleman instead of in front of him. And there were some little things like that. But
I mean, that one that Mustafa tipped, I think it was to Jakai or was it Williamson?
A little underthrown.
Yeah, it was like, that far, right? It was that far. I mean, just a little plays it out there, just that much more, and that's a big, huge play. Great play by that kid.
Boy, Mustafa's a football player, isn't he? I got a man crush on him.
Yeah, he's a really good football player. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, that's the difference between being a great quarterback and a good quarterback, right? Is that those inches on those throws. And Jordan made some really good throws, and he made some average throws, but he threw for 350 yards. What am I complaining about?
I want a Tony, boy.
I mean, that's right. I'm just like,
hey, Mark, I did ask him in the press conference. He felt like he's played his best football the last couple of weeks, and he said he's going to do a lot better. So that's going to be a problem for Pitt and Miami and Florida if he's going to play better, because we talked about it before. I think we expect so much from Jordan. And, listen, we're starting to see the old Jordan again on that run where when they were going towards Snuggy Hill, he started trying to drag people with him down there in the middle of the field. You can definitely tell that Jordan is getting healthier and more confident in whatever was going on with his body, whether it was a shoulder, rib, whatever it was. But certainly, and that was kind of the emphasis of Jared and Trey and Keon. We had an all-star cast after the game. It was Jared, Keon, Trey, and Jordan, and they basically to a man said, hey, we still got our best football still to come. And Jared Verse said, are you playing your best football yet in regards to playing a full game? And he goes, no, if we ever play a full game, we'll be scary.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I've been saying here the whole time since before you came on, is that when you see how dominant we can be, we were for like a quarter and a little bit, and then that third quarter happens, you just get so frustrated. And I'm sure they probably are too. If I'm down, I'm probably like, what is it about us that we can't just do this, and impose our will like that? So hopefully we'll find the secret sauce here in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, another thing Jared talked about was how Fabian he's faced this offense, I believe, 3 years in a row. And he talked about how Fabian was kind of the linchpin and getting this team motivated and teaching them the ins and outs of that mesh offense. And he felt like Fabian was one of the reasons the defense played as well as it did today. And so that was good to hear, obviously, because Fabian's throughout the year has been used, I guess, conservatively would be the term I would use, but certainly had a big impact. And listen, in that first half, and I'm sure you guys have already hit on this, of those 75 yards, 51 were on one play, and certainly that play counts. But what they were able to do in those other 30 plays was dominant. And I think if you carry away anything from this game, we talked about it being one of the keys. FSU's interior tackles were as good as have played up to their ability, right? Because that was the key. Because if you go back and look at where Wake Forest wants to run the ball, if you go break them down, it was between those two A and B gaps where obviously Fisk and Farmer, and we saw Malcolm Ray. We saw a lot of Daniel Lyons today, guys, early. And, you saw Fabian. So really those 5 guys, kind of forced their hand. And the linebackers continue to get better. DJ Lundy, they had that run in the first half where that big hole was there on a 1st and 10 play. If he doesn't make that play, that guy's gone, or at least going to go for a big gain. And we've seen the linebackers get better. So, and listen, you needed those middle guys to really step up against this offense, and they did.
Florida State's defense, of note, forced 9 Wake Forest punts. 7 of those drives were 3 and outs. So it was very much dominating at times there. We made a big deal, I think. I wrote a story a little bit about this, the second half shutouts for the defense that they've had of late. Of course, that streak was broken. But when you look at the box score, very interesting thing here. No points for Wake Forest first quarter, no points for Wake Forest fourth quarter. You get a little bit of a 30-minute shutout there, bookended.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
I would like to know, during that stretch where they scored 10 points, how many of those drives were helped up by penalties? Both of them, right? I mean, how much penalty yards do they have in those drives? Because
I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Because it's not like they just jammed it down our throat. I mean, they were helped along and bailed out on some.
9 for 115, Mark. 9 for 115.
Yeah, I bet you majority of those penalties were during those 2 drives that they scored on.
Well,
otherwise they don't score.
Then if you had not had the holding call and the long pass at Kentron, they were out of it at 31-7 or whatever it was at halftime. They're 34-7.
Right.
They were out of it at that point. But listen, credit to Wake. They came out and tried to fight to make this a 2-possession game, which they almost got. But that play, listen, again, they were up by 3 scores, but Fisk makes that play on the 2-point play where if he doesn't make it, you're looking at 34-18, and you're breathing a little life into Wake Forest thinking, hey, all we need is 2 drives and we can tie this thing up. Now, obviously, they would have had to get 2-point conversions, and we know that's hard. It's hard to get 3 straight, 1 2-point conversion, let alone 3 straight. But certainly, that was a big play in the second half.
Yeah, it certainly was. It certainly was a big play. I didn't think the game was in doubt because there was 19 minutes left in the game, but still, it's a big play when you're in. Any scoring play is a big play. So
yeah. Well, listen, it's on the road. They haven't played on the road in a month. Mike talked about how proud he was of the way these guys. He said he knew in pregame that this team was ready. He felt like this team was ready to go, and they certainly came out. And as you guys have already documented, I'm sure the second quarter was just 225 yards to Wake. I think I had like 30 yards in the second quarter. So, I mean, the second quarter is really the difference in the ball game. And Mike says, listen, we talked a little bit about the polls, and I think the College Football Playoff Committee comes out Tuesday. It'll be their first rankings. And he goes, listen, it really doesn't matter. And the kids were in lock and step with him on that. It really doesn't matter what we're ranked on Tuesday. It only matters what we're ranked 5 weeks from now. kind of thing. And so that message really seems to be clear from Mike on down through the kids. And somebody asked Keon if he was going to watch the college football playoff show, and he didn't even realize there was one. And he goes, if there's an NBA game, I'm not going to be watching the show. So, they do seem like they're focused. You can tell they felt like they left a little meat on the bone. I think we all thought they would come out and maybe hang 60 on these guys by the time the game was over and really make and I think it was a statement. What they did in the second quarter was certainly a statement. And as you guys alluded to, listen, they didn't do much in the fourth quarter, and some of the yards they got late in the fourth quarter were kind of, trash yards when they went, I think, about 7.5 minutes left. Mike went to mostly backups on both sides of the ball.
Well, I think part of the frustration too is wanting 3 years worth of retribution on this program for the frustration we felt and wanting to get it all out. So that might be part of it too. That's why I'm feeling like I'm feeling. I feel good. Don't get me wrong. I feel good. It's just that third quarter is just like,
it's so funny how it is.
It is because you're like, oh God, we're just Florida State gets shut out and the at 57 yards in the third quarter, and we start looking at it with a critical eye. I was like, come on, this can't be the second coming of BC again. There's no way. There's no way this is going to happen again.
There were some rumblings in the stands about that. It's like, oh, here we go, another BC.
But I've said this all the time. So, Mark, sometimes you and I are a little bit too critical.
Way too critical. I get that. I hear Mike, how proud he is and all that, and I'm like, you know what? He's right. He's right. These guys work hard. They just beat a team by, 3/4 scores, and we're over here, dissecting, a bad run, bad spell.
Yeah, I can always see the silver lining, but one of the good things about these bad moments is they keep you humble. They give the coaches something to show the players.
Well, and I think it was Jordan that said it. Listen, they got some scholarship guys too. And Mike even said it. The other team's going to make some plays from time to time. And Julie Williamson Salva says, "Be happy, Mark."
Yeah.
And she should have gone ahead and said that's an order.
Right.
Yeah, but
I hear
listen,
you, Earl. I hear you.
By the way, Jerry, you should have been at the Triad Seminole tailgate party. It was really good.
I'm wearing the shirt. I'm representing.
Mark has one complaint. There was no picture of him to raffle off when he was playing at Florida State. They raffled off.
Not just me. I'm talking about no offensive linemen. So,
I'm joking, Mark. I'm joking. But yeah, it was all skill guys.
I understand it should be Walter Jones or somebody like that, but come on.
Yeah,
that's why they call you all the big uglies. Who wants your picture hanging on their wall?
The big sexies, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Me and
speaking of big sexies, let's give some love to the guys up front on the defensive front. 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Saw some good pressure. Patrick Payton, Jared Verse.
Yes.
I mean, you could go through a bunch of names here, guys, but part of it's depth. Part of it's just getting after it. Maybe it's that Wake Forest tired of losing them thing. I know, Mark, you gave some love to the secondary because you had a good wide view being at the stadium, but just, guys, thoughts from your vantage points in the stadium of that defensive front from Florida State.
I mean, it was obviously dominating, and they cracked that run, so they caught a seam, right? So an anomaly for the most part, but yeah, and then the pressure. Like I said, there was nowhere to really get the ball. If he held the ball at all, he was going to get sacked, right? It's nice to play a quarterback that's not a threat to run too. That was that's nice. So that kind of helped things too. But yeah, those guys, I mean, they did what they were supposed to do against that group for sure.
Yeah, I believe that tackle for that's the wrong drive. I've got that big play by Peyton really changed the course of that particular possession. I can't find the possession on my notes, but it was on Wake's 5th possession. Turned a 2nd and 10 to a 2nd and 15. Got him to 3rd and 20. They did not give 36 credit for a sack. He tackled him behind the line. It should have been a sack for Omar Graham, but he did not get that. But yeah, that was the key play on that drive was that TFL by Peyton, and he came steaming off the edge. I mean, they didn't even touch him. That was a great play by Patrick. And listen, I think they were suffocating. I think that's the best adjective to use it. They were suffocating. They didn't allow many big runs, and they're going to listen as long as Dave Clawson's been running that play and as good as they are at doing it, they were going to hit a couple. And Florida State really did limit the success they had in the game.
Like you
Well,
said,
and that-
I never felt like the game was in jeopardy at any
No.
point. You know, so
And you know, again, Adam is playing some guys that I would call second teamers in the first quarter. I mean, first and second quarter on that play. In fact, they had Graham in there at linebacker.
Yep.
They had Edmonds at tackle and Hussey at safety.
Yep.
Now, the guy I think that probably caused more of the problem than anybody was probably Shaheem. I think he hit the wrong hole, but I don't know what his assignment was, but he hit inside, all bounced out. So, but there you were with 3 non-starters in the game.
Yeah, and listen, hats off to Daniel Lyons. I think he played more today than he's probably played all season, and obviously he stepped up for Briggs, and he played. I think the second series on, or he might have played I'm pretty sure it was the second series when he came in the ball game, but he played a lot in the first half, a lot in the second half. So it was good to see that depth continues to get better up front.
I'm happy. We could be Oklahoma right now. I'm just sitting there looking 38-33.
They lost.
Yes, to Kansas.
So
not in Kansas anymore, Venerables.
Yep. So there you go.
Well, by the way, how's Clemson doing? They were getting beat at halftime.
They're losing. Been team to.
Hey, could you guys tell how much garnet and gold was in the stands on television? That Mike talked a little bit about that. So did the kids, and Mike talked about how special it was. They felt like it. Jared Verse said it felt like a home game. He actually had a conversation with one of the Wake players during the game about, does this feel like an away game for you guys?
That's some high-level trash talk right there.
Yeah. Well, I think from what I can gather, Jared's very good at that kind of stuff. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, he did say, "Hey, does this feel like a away game to you guys?" He didn't tell us who he was talking to, but he did mention that in the post game because we asked him about, "Hey, did you guys recognize how many?" Of course, he's never played here against them, but in the games we've covered here before, it's been a sparse crowd on both sides, and we went to that tailgate, and I figured, well, maybe 50 people would show up, and there were about 300 Seminoles at that thing, but over the course of the 2 hours we were there, and but I think Mark stayed a little bit longer than we did. But yeah, it was. There was a lot of garnet gold down on Snuggy Hill, which would have been a great place to watch the second half of this ball game. But I left my sleeping bag and pillow at home.
So Georgia just went up 24-7 against the Gators.
Yeah.
Well,
so look, everybody's got their flaws, and we got ours, but we are undefeated, and that's a rare thing. So enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be happy. Promise.
Take that bicycle out for a spin today,
That's
Mark.
exactly right. I am. I'm going to wear my Florida State stuff everywhere I go this week.
Hey, Pat, I was saving this one for you because I know we like to talk about field position. You like to talk about field position in particular.
Yep.
It felt like Wake Forest was in a really bad spot to start a number of drives. One of them courtesy of your 54-yard punt by Alex Mastermano to pin Wake on the 1. But Wake also starts drives on the 1, the 9, the 8. Their average starting field position was, I think, the 24. So a good day for both punters, let's be honest.
Yeah,
but
it's like a week in a row. We've seen punters just show off. That damn punt he had that pinned them on the 1 yard line. This is a great golf school here at Wake Forest. Arnold Palmer, among others that have played here, Curtis Strange, I believe, is a Wake Forest guy. They all would have been proud of that damn kick because, that thing came right back just like a pitching wedge would. Mark should have appreciation for that, as big a golfer as he was. But listen, that kid legitimately needs to be considered for the Ray Guy Award. He has made a difference in this ball game. They held him to 3 and out after that punt, and FSU converted with a field goal, I believe. But so listen, they paid it off. The offense paid. Obviously, we would have liked to see the touchdown. I'm sure Mike Norvell would have liked to see the touchdown in that situation. When you take over that short field, I believe they got the ball in the plus 42 after Wake turned it over or punted. But yeah, certainly, listen, that kid's had a heck of a year. Florida State is so good on offense. Sometimes I do think he gets overlooked. I don't know how many times he punted today. I'm really worried about that 30 number, as we all know, because I had a bet that he would punt no more than 30 times this year. So we're getting close. We got 4 games to go. We really need an offensive. I need Mike to go for it more on 4th down. I'm not. I need him to keep that kid off the field. Although he is fun to watch to play. Yeah, but that did make I think that made a huge difference in that ball game. I think that got him up by 10 at that point. So you're back up 2 scores. But yeah, certainly that kid's been fun to watch this year. And obviously, Mike mentioned that Fitz's response to the missed field goal was really good. That he had no qualms about putting him back out there. That I think there was one other time they might have been thinking about kicking a field goal. He did make one later. But anyway, yeah, the kicking game has, as somebody said, special teams has been special. Then where is this Deuce Spann came from? I mean, he flipped the field with that kickoff return. Yeah, I mean, that was a 50-yard kickoff return. He caught that ball about middle of the A in the end zone and brought it all the way back out to either 42 or 46. And, I mean, that's when that particular sequence, you saw the 23-yard pass to Hill right after that. And then you saw the 14-yard pass to Coleman, which I believe is when they played off-man coverage with him to the field. And so I asked Jordan, I said, what did you think when you saw that? And he goes, I didn't know what to think. He just got this big old smile on his face. And, and Mike said the same thing that Jordan said. Listen, if people are going to play him off-man coverage, we're going to throw the ball to him. And that's what Mike said, and that's what Jordan said. If people are willing to do that with him. Listen, they did have other guys, and Mike talked about the other receivers stepping up, and I don't know what the other numbers were for the other receivers. I know the tight ends had a big day. You had Bell with a couple of big catches. You had Morlock with that big seam pass that got him down to 1st and goal. I don't know whether they converted on that drive or not. I think they may have. But listen, they did this without Johnny Wilson. Dez was not available. Hakeem didn't play. So you're out. One of those guys is a starter. 2 of those guys are starters, Dez and Johnny. And then we've seen Hakeem get better as the season has gone on. Saw that big play, I think, last week against Duke, or was it Syracuse, where you saw that explosiveness that he has as a pass catcher and runner. So listen, to think that they did this without their, 2 of their starters at the very least at wide receiver, I thought that was a good sign. And then, you saw Ja'Kai with a couple of catches in the ball game, and it's such a shame that and I didn't. The Roddick's back was to the press box, so I couldn't tell whether it was a hold or not on that rollout. But what a catch by Kentron, and boy, does that kid seem to be coming on with each passing week. And Mike is one of those guys. We've talked about this a lot over the course of the 4 or 5 years we've been doing this. But we've heard Mike talk about in-season development, and we continue to see that. DJ Lundy, I mean, I know I'm skipping around here, but DJ Lundy, I don't know if we expected him to play the way he's played this year, particularly against the run. Listen, nobody's been able to throw the ball against this defense. They've gotten better in the secondary. The last 3 weeks, no one's ever been able to find much success. So, listen, there's a lot of things that are going well for this team, and we all 3-4 know this. You want to be playing your best ball as you get into November and December, and that's what Florida State's doing right now.
100%.
And Florida State will go into November undefeated. Obviously, going in that Pitt game, and like Pat was saying earlier, we will see on Halloween night what the first CFP standings reveal. Like you guys talked about, Oklahoma is out of that top 4 picture with a loss. Florida State comfortably in the top 4, right? So, guys, the question is, we're all very biased, but has Florida State maybe made an argument to be a little bit higher than number 4 at this point? And you might say, what does it matter? It's all just optics right now. So it's just good discussion. But has Florida State maybe made an argument to be the 3rd best team, maybe the 2nd best team in the country? Does anybody have an opinion, or just want to say it doesn't matter right now?
Well, certainly it doesn't matter right now. I'll say that, but for the record. But I listen, I think Florida State is among the top 4. I feel very strongly based upon what I've seen. But FSU has no argument for the top 4 based upon their collective statistics. Right? When you look at Florida State defensively or offensively, they're not a team you see in the top 5 in any statistical category. They're a team that you often find around 25 or 40. And so from a statistical standpoint, I don't think there's a case to be made, but they're 8-0, and I think they're the most explosive team in America. And I'll say one last thing about the statistics. I don't think Mike Norvell gives a rat's ass about where his teams are ranked statistically. I think he's trying to build depth.
Well, and they'll need it if they go as far as we think they're going to go or could go, because they, listen, we know this is. I think this is going to be at minimum. Well, we know it's going to be a 13-game season, but I think it's going to be a 13-game season as of December 2nd, because I think they're going to the ACC championship game. Listen, we know if Georgia wins, and right now y'all said 24-7, they're going to be number one. I don't see them going to number two because of the Big Ten and whoever looks the best today in the Big Ten, whether it's Michigan or Ohio State. I don't know if both of them play or not. I think Michigan may have an off week, but I would think you'd see one of those at two. But I think Florida State can make the argument for three, but I definitively think they're going to be number four at worst. I mean, I don't know how they could not be number four, particularly with Oklahoma getting beat today. And then, listen, we all know that Michigan State or Ohio State is going to get beat by each other. One of those teams is going to lose and Michigan's still got to play Penn State, who did not look very good today. Obviously, I think they got a squeaker against Indiana. But yeah, I think they're going to come in at four. But I think you could see them. If they were ranked three, I would say that's a fair ranking.
Yeah, everyone's going to look at our schedule and who we beat. Right now Clemson's getting beat. Duke's is getting beat early here. Those are two big wins for us, and then so our biggest one really is LSU, and that one's going to hold up. I believe that one's going to hold up. They could possibly win their side of the thing if they beat Alabama.
Yep. And
and go to their championship game. So that's going to be our best moving forward. So it's all going to come down to, how good is Miami going to be in their perception of them, and right now Florida's getting boat raced. So, but we can't control any of that. Best thing we can do, look, an undefeated ACC championship is going to go to the playoff, right? A one-loss ACC championship, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially if you get an Alabama, with one loss, and they were to go in, and if they were to finish the regular season with one loss, then go in and beat Georgia, then the playoff scenario becomes a little bit more cloudy. So I think, obviously, we all want to see Florida State go 12-0. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but I do think that if they were to have a loss, Alabama were to have a loss at the end of the year, then I think that conversation becomes a little bit more muddy, for lack of a better term. But yeah, right now, 3 or 4, I think is what they're going to come out as.
Agreed.
Yeah, of note, Ohio State's number 3. They're playing Wisconsin 7:30 on NBC, and you're right, Michigan does have that bye this week. So,
well, it's about time for old what's his name at Wisconsin? The guy that was at Cincinnati last year?
Luke Fickell.
Yeah, Fickell needs to get that signature win. Tonight would be a good one. He's due.
And I don't, Ohio State just doesn't. They don't wow me.
No, FSU is certainly better than them on offense. There's no doubt about that. And I know they played very well in defense against Penn State. I don't know how they've looked the rest of the year. But I think Ohio State is being carried by its defense this season, which has not been the past. They've always been good on defense, but they've had explosive offenses the last 7-8 years with C.J. Stroud. And, they've had a number of really good quarterbacks, but they don't seem to be the offensive juggernaut they've been in the past, for sure.
Well, if you look at the quarterbacks that are left, right? J.J. McCarthy's having a great year, right? I don't even know who the Ohio State quarterback is, and I wasn't all that impressed with him when I watched Penn State. I'll take our guy over all of them right now because he hasn't had to be what we know he can be. But I think when it comes down to it, if we need to win the game and he has the ball in his hand, I like our chances better than just about anybody, right? You got Jaden Daniels, Carson Beck, he's getting better, But again, I wouldn't trade our guy for anybody. And if we need to drive to win the game against anybody, at the end, I want the ball in his hands. And so
Well,
I think that makes us a viable contender.
Well, I think Jordan's good enough with his arm and his legs. If everything's not going right, the offense is off, he's still good enough to have a performance on his own that kind of carries the day. I'm not sure that can be said for the kid at Ohio State, the kid at Michigan, if that's what we're still talking about. Jordan is one of the most dynamic playmakers. And listen, it's so much fun to see him starting to run the ball more, and because of what it does to the entire offense. And today, based on what we've seen the previous several weeks, even at Duke, he was taking some slides that we normally don't see Jordan take. He tries to run like he's 240 pounds, and we all love it. But it is fun as they get into the stretch run to see Mike and I don't know if Mike's doing it or Jordan's doing it or it's a combination, but it's kind of fun to see this offense at full throttle when you kind of taking the restrictions off his legs, and he's gotten healthy enough to where he feels like he can run over somebody. I mean, he took on 3 guys on that play where he ran for that 15 or 16-yard scramble. So, yeah, I agree with Mark on that. I think that Jordan's got a chance to win a game for you even when things aren't clicking.
He'll get that chance maybe against Miami. That'll be probably the big game between now and.
Boy, I was sure hoping Clemson would come through for us today for Florida State and how that was perceived, and maybe they'll come back and.
Well, let's take care of Pitt, right? Let's take care of Pitt.
Yeah.
Because we got this cold front coming through. The weather's going to be a little different.
But these are always fun. These projections are always fun to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the same discussion that we're having are the discussions people are having on the ride home from the game today. We're at 8-0. Things are setting up pretty good for Florida State as the season comes down to a wine. And can you guys believe that we are going to be in November next week, and then we're going to be 9 games in this 2023 football season? I mean, it's crazy to think how fast this season has gone by.
Yeah,
it really is. And then we won't have anything to talk about for a while.
We'll have the transfer portal and recruiting to talk about. Just like that, it'll be spring football. By the time we get through the portal, they'll be 4 weeks out for spring practice, and we'll be fired up again. But yeah, it's listen, it's we probably talk about this too much, but it's so much fun to cover this team compared to years. I mean, obviously last year was a good year, but this team. It's been so much fun to cover, and obviously a lot of that has to do because they're playing better than their opponents every week of the season so far. But yes, it's been fun to see. It was fun to see them kind of come and knock this thing out in the first half. I think the first half's kind of how we all thought it would go when we did our staff prediction and keys to a win. And it'd be interesting to go back through the keys to a win tonight and see how many we hit, because I think just about everybody hit. Although, Bob, I know you're disappointed. You wanted a 10-possession ball game. You almost had that in the first half, man.
I might have missed on that key.
That's fine. Hey, when you win by 4 scores, that's all right. But I thought about it at halftime because I think there were either 8 or 9 possessions by Florida State in the first half, and I thought about your key. I was like, Bob was hoping this game was going to be a lot shorter, and I think we expected Wake to do a lot more. It wouldn't be called tempo, the opposite of tempo. I think we thought they'd try to slow down the game, right, and really be very methodical about how they used the clock, and they really weren't, which probably played into Florida State's hands for sure. But yeah,
I think that was because Bob said earlier 7 of their first 9 possessions were 3 and outs.
Yeah, well, that's true. They had several of those. There's no doubt about that.
Well,
looking back at our score predictions, Jerry, you were darn close. I believe you had 41-17 looking at it here. And Fish had, I think it was 42-17. Yeah. So props to you guys for being closest to the pin, like Alex Mastermano there.
That's right. But when we averaged it out, the average score by our 7 pickers was 42-17, I think. So it was very close to what the final score was. And Pat, you weren't on when I said it, but when you predict the game to be and you're really close on the score to what you predict. And as a staff, you're really close to what that final game was. You should feel really good. But I said, but I felt like after the game, I feel like this little kid who came downstairs and saw a bike under the Christmas tree.
The one you really wanted.
and I was disappointed because it wasn't a pony. You know?
Yeah. Well, listen.
Really, that's been the whole season has been like that. I mean, if you look at our message boards, our fans, they're either worried about losing or they're worried about, they're predicting scores that aren't anywhere near as good as what the team is producing, yet they're disappointed at the end of the game.
Right.
Well, and I said this to Mark the other day. I think sometimes, depending on the generation of FSU fan you're talking to, I think, I said, Mark, this is our weakness. When we see a great Florida State team or what we expect to see in a dominating football team, back in Mark's day when he was playing at GA and they were on that great run, the games were 50-3. And, college football's kind of changed. The way offenses are run has made it harder to stop offenses with all the RPO stuff. It's probably never been a worse time to be a defensive coordinator in the history of the game. I think sometimes our expectations are too high. But to your point, Jerry, it's almost like we go to practice on these score predictions. We kind of got a good feel for what was going on with Florida State. And listen, I think we obviously we pay attention to who Florida State is playing. Now, that being said, we will probably all miss our picks against Pitt next week. It'll probably be a 14-13 slug out, and we'll pick 50-10 next week. But yeah, so I think it's a fun exercise, and I do think that it shows that as a staff, we kind of have been paying attention to what's going on, and I think that's a credit to you and Bob and Kurt and Nick and everybody else that goes to practice. And obviously Mark breaks down the opponents every week. He watched Wake film before he watches opponent film before he submits his keys. And I think we'll be wrong at some point in the next 4 games, but it's certainly fun when we're right.
Yeah, we were a little bit off last week. I thought we were about a touchdown. At least I was. They scored one more than I expected, but all year long, the staff collectively, when you average it out, is very close. And but
I'm not going to lie, I was pulling for 50. I was trying to figure out a way they could get 9 points in the last 7.5 minutes.
Well, Pat, they would have if Mike had let them.
Yeah, you're right about that. That.
That's part of when I pick. I usually I don't go as high as I normally would because I know. We picked that game to win by 4 scores.
Yep.
We had a 43 to whatever. There was 28-point spread. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
One of our message boards posted it that I like y'all's optimism, but really, Vegas has 2 scores and you all got a 4.
Oh, so, Vegas's guy might not show up at practice on the right day. We did. We did.
I wish we were all betting men. We'd be all right.
I found out when I bet it doesn't always work out the way I want.
Yeah, those 2-foot putts get a lot harder to make.
Yeah, all right, listen. I could tell somebody else to bet a game, and there's almost no doubt they're going to win. But as soon as I start throwing some of my money at it, it changes everything. I know there's no direct correlation between what I think and what happens with the game, but when I bet, that's why I'm not a bettor. But it's listen, and again, to your point, talking about expectations, and they just won by 4 scores, and I see a comment right now. We play good and bad in the same game. That's been our Achilles heel. It's hard to say that you didn't play well when you win by 4 scores. I mean, I don't know what the optics are sometimes that even we are looking for, let alone people that have bigger expectations than we do. And I feel like we have tremendous expectations for this team. And sometimes, as I've told Mark, as I put in our midseason report card, even on Jordan, I think that my expectations for what I want to see Jordan Travis do are probably too high. And I think sometimes as fans, and which we are from time to time, I think sometimes our expectations can be a little bit more exaggerated than what they need to be.
Agreed. And then set you up for disappointment.
Yep. But no disappointment today.
None by me.
I'm good.
All right. Well, that sounds like a good place for us to wrap up. Our next show is to be determined, but I will say we're going to do a live show Tuesday night, as that CFP announcement will be done 7 p.m. Tuesday night. So we'll kind of have a live show so we can react in real time to the top four and give you our thoughts there.
I think what we ought to do is we ought to go on a few minutes before they start. Now, of course, they're going to have to, I think they go through the whole damn top 25. I can't remember where they start with the 25 through 20, or they start with the front four first. I think it's front four first. We ought to go on and pick our top four and then see how we compare against the college football playoff committee.
Are you guys trick-or-treating on Tuesday? No? You guys are getting dressed up and trick-or-treating?
We could dress up for the show.
I'll dress up the college football playoff trophy.
I'll see if I can get RG3's Harry Potter outfit, and I'll wear that.
We made it 56 minutes without an RG3 costume reference, but he was on TV multiple times with his costume. Yes.
Yeah, he was walking through the press box at halftime and still had portions of it on, so he was committed. There's no doubt about that.
All right, we're going to bring this one home in under an hour here. Thanks for watching the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. This is our first impressions of Florida State's win over Wake Forest. Again, thanks for reading our coverage on theosceola.com. If you're not a subscriber, jump in now again for full coverage of the Seminoles football team, all the recruiting and basketball, of course, starting up soon. Again, like and subscribe to our channel, The Osceola. We appreciate you watching, whether it's in real time or on delay. And we will also have the podcast audio upload soon to your Apple, Spotify feed, so you can listen and digest those on demand as you go about your weekends. But want to thank our guys in Winston-Salem, Mark Salva, sweating it out in the stands. Thanks for being there, making that trip and watching. Patrick Burnham up in the box. Patrick Burnham was staying cool as always. No tan. Jerry Kutz from the back patio. Appreciate you joining us here on First Impressions. Mark Salva, you know how to wrap it up, buddy.
Go Noles.
And Kurt's writing this column right now.